Happy Wednesday, everyone. Welcome back to the Early Edge College Football Pick Show, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. We had chaos last weekend, and of course, more chaos to come this weekend. We're going to talk marquee matchups, best bets overall, some underdog bets as well, and talk the storylines of last weekend. Let's start to unpack it, and I have none other than the best brains in college football when it comes to betting. Mike McClure, Tom Casale, Emory Hunt. Great to see you guys again, as always, on these Wednesday afternoons. Obviously, we see a lot happen last weekend, right? You have Penn State and Texas, number 1 and number 2 preseason, go down. Now, I have a little stat for you guys to warm us up here, so strap in. Number 1, Texas, number 2, Penn State, number 4, Clemson, all in the preseason rankings. They're a combined 8 and 7 right now. They have one Power 4 win between the three of them. Crazy stuff to see. First time preseason 1 and 2 have been unranked since 1967. With all that said, we must start the show talking about Mr. James Franklin himself and what went on there. So, Emory, are we calling this a fireable offense? What do we do now with Mr. James Franklin?
I don't think it's a fireable offense. I do feel like, we are so in a reactionary era where guys lose a game and you wonder whether or not the program is going to fold and drop football. Should the head coach be fired? They lost a couple of games. And, yes, this UCLA one was egregious, right? Because everybody watched it on big CBS. But outside of that, I think he does have to keep his job because you want to see how he can turn this thing around. You look at the upcoming slate of games. You could win against Northwestern. You could win against Iowa. And if he can pull off the upset against Ohio State, he'll find himself back in good graces, and it'll put Penn State back on track to get to the college football playoff, which is all important for Penn State this year.
That's the thing. I think anyone who goes 10-2 from the Big Ten has a really good shot of making the college football playoff. So it's still possible for them to do that. It's just winning out, which we give them an 11% chance to win out. That's beside the point here. Tom, I mean, it's what, a $50 million buyout? Or is that something we even should be considering? Or do we look at this as, you know what, this is a guy who's always going to be putting us in the top 10 with a winning record?
Yeah, and I like your 11% chance. I mean, I give him a 0% chance to go to Ohio State and pull off the upset based on, his history against those teams. You rarely see a guy, though, with this record get fired. The only one I could think of was John Cooper, the old Ohio State head coach, who beat everybody but Michigan. And at some point, they said, you know what, you can't beat Michigan, you're gone. I think he's not going to get fired this year, I don't think. But if we go through another season and he struggles, then I think he would be in trouble because this was their year. They had guys coming back who didn't go to the draft to win a national championship. And they're an Ohio State loss away from not making the college football playoffs, which is amazing to me. So I don't think they're going to fire him. But I do think at some point, like you said, you look and you say, are we ever going to get over the hump with James Franklin?
Well, that's the thing. You think of Ryan Day last year when they lose to Michigan. People want to fire him. He goes on to win a national championship. I'm not quite sure we're in that exact boat here, Mike, but do you still think the James Franklin era should live on?
I think the era should live on, no doubt. You talked about you're almost guaranteed to be a top 10 to 15 team, making some form of postseason every year. And just who are you going to replace them with, right? So that's an issue that I think that I keep coming back to is yes, it's unfortunate you lose some of these big games. Certainly that loss to UCLA is an ugly one and might keep them from postseason contention here in terms of the college football playoff. But who are you bringing in day one that really changes things drastically for this program? I don't think the answer is really anyone that's currently available right now. So I would not be moving on from Franklin. I think they lock in and, try to salvage this season. If they get invited to the college football playoff, I think they're a dangerous team still. But I do not see them moving on from James Franklin.
Yeah, this is a tougher parallel, but I just think of Mike Tomlin and how he's always just going to be doing enough to not get fired. And maybe somewhere down the road, that's what we're talking about with James Franklin. Interesting to see. I've been tracking a lot of the implied amount of teams from each Power 4 conference to make the college football playoff. And you see with that Penn State loss, they go from around 3.75, closer to that 4 number, to now 3.25, almost implying that 3 number. So it's almost like Penn State is out here punishing the entire Big Ten. But you know who didn't punish their conference was Texas when they lost to the SEC, when they lost to Florida here. They're still dancing around 4.85 teams implied here. So when you look at the odds to win the SEC championship right now, probably some of the most parity we've seen in a while. You see Alabama with the shortest odds at plus 200, followed by Georgia, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and then we start to hit that 10-1 there with Texas, LSU, Missouri at 20-1. So a lot of value still left and a lot of marquee head-to-head matchups left in the SEC. Obviously, Ole Miss kind of remains that front runner, the best chance to make the playoff because they probably have that at-large bid. But are you guys seeing any value, Tom, in that number for Ole Miss to win the SEC championship?
Yeah, I think there's some value there. Emory mentioned a key word, reactionary. And especially in today's college football, you can't really judge teams in that first month of the season because almost everybody is replacing 90% of their roster these days. So Ole Miss is a team, they already have a different quarterback than they had at the beginning of the season. And they replaced a ton on defense. And I think this is a team that's getting better and will continue to get better throughout the season. I also think in SEC terms, they don't have an awful schedule. I mean, you look at some of these teams like Florida, I mean, their schedules are a monster. Oklahoma. So I do think they have a nice path to get to the SEC championship game at plus 650.
Yeah, and I think you have a nice cushion to be any top 3, even top 4 SEC team right now. But Mike, do you agree with Tom here that Ole Miss probably is a good value?
Yeah, I think they've got the best shot of just simply being in the game right now, which I think matters a lot when you talk about a college football, title in this conference. So yes, they got a difficult stretch with Georgia and Oklahoma back to back. I think they go 1-1 in those 2 games, and they're sitting right there. So based off of the landscape and just you have to be in the game itself, right? I'll be on the Ole Miss side here at plus 650.
Okay. Emory, I see you're giving us a little bit more value here down the board. You're looking at Oklahoma with potential John Mateer coming back.
Therein lies the reason why they have value. You have John Mateer that's going to come back at some point, which is a great thing. But the reason why I like the value for Oklahoma, you could also make a case for A&M for the same reasons. Defensively, they are playing the best ball in the SEC. They may have the best defense in terms of team defense. Talk about Oklahoma and also Texas A&M. And if you got defense in that particular conference, you got a shot. And when you get a dynamic quarterback coming back in John Mateer, now you have the best chance, in my opinion. So that's going to be fascinating to watch this weekend and how they take care of business versus Texas. But when you look at them defensively and look at how they played all of these games, good test against Michigan. Temple had some good offense. They were able to shut those guys down. You saw what they did at Auburn. And so we'll see Texas and South Carolina in that Ole Miss game. So if you got a great defense with this schedule, Oklahoma right now looks like the best value.
I'm just looking at that schedule, and it's absolutely insane. And I think that's why you're getting such a good number on this Oklahoma team, because odds makers recognize that too. And I struggle with this team because power rankings wise, I think this is a phenomenal team, but you're looking at that back half that you saw Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, South Carolina, LSU, Missouri, who might be an undefeated team, by the way. Like, what an absolute gauntlet. And I really am rooting for this Oklahoma team because I do believe they do have the talent. It's just crazy to see a schedule like that. It reminds me probably the Florida Gators is the second toughest I'm looking at, probably tougher, but nonetheless, very interesting situation going on in the SEC and the parity happening in that conference, which tends to bode well for a conference like the SEC. Not so much the Big 10, Big 12, ACC. Let's go back to the Big 10 here. Talk about Ohio State. They're ranked number 1 right now. It's kind of hard to make a case for them not to be number 1 right now, Emory. Would there be any case for somebody else?
Nah, they should have been number 1 to start the season. That's the thing. They won national championship. Give them their respect they deserve. Put them at number 1. And so them getting back to number 1 should be what it had always have been from start to finish, because until you beat the champs, you remain the champs. And they're playing like it right now, especially when you're watching Julian Sayin get better each and every game. He then went from a question mark to now an asset, and that offense is looking like a fine offense right now. We still got to work on the running game, and if they get that running game solved, then it look like a great offense. But right now, Julian Sayin was the biggest question and concern we had coming in, and he's looking like a star. So combine that with a good defense, they deserve to be number 1.
Yeah, I mean, tough to argue that. I think people look at Miami, and I think they have a great resume. But the box scores honestly don't help them. If you're looking at pure stats and what Carson Beck is putting up, it's not. I'm giving them their flowers. I don't think they, deserve to be dinged, but it's hard to call them the number 1 team right now. Tom, we're going to see this Ohio State team play Illinois. Do you think they have to kill Illinois or put up a showing close to Indiana to remain number 1?
No, I don't. Listen, they've allowed 25 points all season. And they're playing differently. They're playing slower on offense because of the way they were built. But watch out for this offense. I think the second half against Washington, they found something. And then last week, I wanted to see how they came out against Minnesota. And the offense is starting to expand now. I really thought if you were going to get Ohio State, it had to be early. I thought Texas or Washington was their best chances for loss, and they won both those games. They're going to be undefeated when they play Michigan, and then that's going to be the deciding factor if they get the number 1 seed in the college football playoff, in my opinion.
Wow. Tom, confident in that November 1st Penn State game here. Mike, would you go as far to say this team will be undefeated by the time they play Michigan?
I would. Yeah, I think they're the best team in college football right now. They took care of business in the difficult spots they had to. They've got, I won't call any stretch easy because it's not easy. They still have to go in and take care of business and do their job. But they've got a stretch right now where they can continue to grow as a team, learn a little bit more about themselves, and still be prepared for those 2 big matchups, being Penn State and Michigan the rest of the way. I think that they should be, considering they won the title last year. I have no issue with Miami. I don't think being the number 2 team, like Miami being 2, is disrespectful to Miami at all. They're the number 2 team. The only team that they're not ahead of right now is Ohio State, who is the defending national champion and undefeated in this spot. So I have no issue with the rankings and where they sit. Ohio State is number 1.
Yeah, for once in my life, I actually agree. I don't have any issues or anything to complain about with these rankings right here. All right, good warm-up. We unpacked everything we need to unpack. It's time to make some money on the other side of this. And if you want to make money with these guys all throughout the week, you absolutely can by going to SportsLine here and using the promo code WINNERS to get 60% off. You can find all of our best bets. All right, let's move it on. We got some marquee matchups to talk about coming up next after the break. This is CBS Sports Network Early Edge College Football Pick Show. Welcome back to the Early Edge College Football Pick Show. Mackenzie Brooks here, joined by Tom Casale, Mike McClure, Emory Hunt. Let's get into some bets here. We're going to start with this first ranked on ranked of a few ranked on ranked games. Alabama, they're laying 3, headed to Missouri. Over under sitting at 51.5, depending where you shop around here. Few notes for what it's worth, few trends. You have Bama after this FSU loss, 4-0 straight up, 4-0 against the spread, 5-1 against the spread versus ranked opponents in the DeBoer era. But you're also looking at Mizzou, who is 4-1 against the spread versus top 5 teams in the last 5 years. So that obviously goes back a little further here, but just food for thought. I'm going to start out here making the case for Missouri. I think they can honestly win outright, but I'll take the +3 if I can find that. This is an Alabama run D who has proven vulnerable on the road. They allowed 7.2 yards per carry to a team like Georgia, even against a team like Vandy, who they didn't play on the road, allowed 7.2 yards per carry. In our model, we have them projected to be outgained on the ground by about 100 yards. But you have Amon Hardy coming off a bye week, who I think is just going to eat this Alabama run D for breakfast. So I think they absolutely can stay in this game based off the production you'll see on the ground. I understand my coworkers don't exactly agree with me. Mike, I'll let you make the Alabama case here.
Yeah, I like Alabama here, Kens. I thought the look-ahead line was a little more appropriate. Maybe not the full 6.5, but right at 6 is where I made the game. Now that it's at a field goal -3 or potentially 2.5, I'm going to disagree with the way the market's trending on this one. You're going to see a lot of noise, in my opinion, about Kalen DeBoer not being great away from home. I think you're talking really small sample size here. He hasn't been great away from home in the Alabama era, which is still very, very new for him, breaking in a brand new program. I think that loss to Florida State early was great for them. They've looked really good since and won the games that maybe they would have collapsed under Kalen DeBoer in the past. I'm talking about the Georgia game, the Vandy game against a mobile quarterback in Diego Pavia. I think Alabama is right there and they're back, and I'm going to be early to the party on Alabama having just being back, essentially. So I don't buy that they're going to struggle on the road in these environments. I think they've got the athletes. I think they've got the coaching, and I think this number should be 6. So give me Bama. Yeah,
definitely going to be a major playoff implication game as well. I think they both have a good insurance bubble on them, but definitely almost securing that lock if either of these teams can win this game here. Tom, last year we see Alabama win this game 34-0. I know that's probably not going to be the case here, but you do still like the Alabama side.
I actually like the under. I'm on the under here. I think you both made great points, and I'm kind of right in the middle of both. I think this is a bad spot for Alabama. They just played Georgia, then they had the big revenge game against Vanderbilt, and they're going on the road. But like Mike said, I can't get there with the number. I was close with him. I made it 5, and I think there's too much of an overreaction on some of these games, and the books are just smarter now because people are smarter. I think this is going to be a heck of a football game. The reason I kind of like the under a little bit is Missouri hasn't really played anyone yet. Their toughest game was against Kansas. And when that's the case, I kind of wonder if the offenses are a little overrated. But as you said, Mackenzie, I agree. I think they're going to try to run the football here with both the quarterback and the running backs, take time off the clock. So I'm going to lean under here at 51.5.
Yeah, first ranked game of the season for Missouri here hosting them. Emory, do you think they have a chance to pull it off at home, or are you laying it with Alabama?
Landed with Alabama, but they always have a chance because now they start to believe in the talent that they have on a roster. And I like the Ahmad Hardy story because he is such a phenomenal tailback after transferring from UL Monroe. But Bama comes into this ball game and saying, hey, if we stop the run, do we believe Bo Perbula can make plays consistently in the passing game? Therein lies where we're going to learn a lot about Missouri as a whole. Because I feel like Alabama will sell out versus the run and make this more of a, hey, Perbula, go out there and win this game with your arm. That's where the pass rush will get to him. That's where Alabama will find ways to have success, and that's why I like them to cover the spread and win this game.
I'd like to give a little shout out to Ahmad Hardy, maybe a little sprinkle on a long shot for Heisman here. If we see all of these quarterbacks start to negate each other, I know we have Jeremiah Smith to worry about too, but just saying, under the big lights here, you got shows showing up for them. I just think this could be a good, maybe Heisman moment for him, and maybe he comes up the rankings. That's not the point of this show, though. Let's continue to give out some best bets here for the big games. Let's head to the 121st Red River rivalry, number 6, Oklahoma versus Texas. Texas laying around 1.5. You can call it a pick 'em if you want. 42.5 is the number here. Now you're looking at Texas, who is 1-4 so far against the spread. Oklahoma, looking at their unders, they are 5-0 so far to the under. This look-ahead line was Texas -11, over under 56.5. If that means Arch Manning is 10 points worse than we thought, that is literally like going from Lamar Jackson to Cooper Rush. Like, that's how much of an insane impact and what the drop-off we've seen from him. Might not be the case here. Two of the best scoring defenses in the SEC right now. Emory Hunt, what is our feeling on this game?
Oklahoma all the way. This is an easy one for me. Oklahoma's defense is outstanding. And what makes them outstanding, not only scheme and how they're coached up and their discipline, but they are a great open field tackling defense as well. So they do a lot of things defensively extremely well. They force you to be disciplined. They force you to make plays that are there ever so slightly. And when you're trying to win offensively within the margins, that's not conducive to a guy like Arch Manning at this juncture of his career having those type of successes against this particular defense. So this is going to be a Brent Venables game. And that's the big reason why I liked Oklahoma in terms of the value. When you look at their schedule, I know on the right side of that column, there's a bunch of numbers right by these teams. When you look at those teams and who are those teams, how many of those quarterbacks do you trust to play consistently against this type of defense? Therein lies the value. I like Oklahoma to win big.
I like it. I like the underdog story here. Curious to see what we're going to get from Texas, seeking their first back-to-back wins since the 2008-2009. I'm going to ask you now, Mike, to make a case for the other side because I see you are on Texas.
Yeah, just you mentioned the look-ahead line, and a lot has changed with these programs, but not that much, in my opinion. So I would still set Texas as -3 in this game. Personally, could argue for 3.5. Ultimately, I still think that they are a good football team. And as much as we talk about how great Oklahoma's defense is, Texas defense has been pretty strong too overall. I know they did surrender 29 to Florida in that game. Some of that was a product of the way the game was going more so than their defensive ability. They held Ohio State to 14 points in that environment on the road. I just think that this is a team that is never going to be out of the game here. And I like the fact that it's, hot in Dallas, 90 degrees. It's going to be a situation where I think that Texas has a little more experience still in this situation. And I think you get their best effort, right? The season's not over. They win this game, they can comfortably lose to Georgia at home later in the season, make the college football playoff as a 3-loss team. This is the must-win game on the schedule, not the Georgia game, not the Texas A&M game. This rivalry game is the must-win game for Texas, and I think they get it done.
Yeah, definitely. Can't afford to lose this one here. I'm going to stick with that defensive narrative here and take that first half under 21.5. I like that we're getting 21.5 because you have to beat me with 3 touchdowns and a field goal or some version of that story. I feel like the Texas defense, will show up, and I feel like this Oklahoma defense, in the absence of John Mateer, for whatever reason, have really stepped up their game as well. We saw that Texas offensive line really struggle against a Gators D-line who was even hurt, right? That wasn't even their full strength version of them. So I could see a first half under here. You see them getting comfortable on the road here. This might be the spot where you go under in the first half. Tom, I see you're taking a team total under.
Yeah, you mentioned offensive line, and that's what I'm always looking at. But listen, I had Texas last week, and this isn't an overreaction. It's just a fact. The things that are wrong with them, I don't know if they're going to be fixed by this week. You mentioned the offensive line, and Oklahoma is going to send a ton of pressure. Arch Manning, for whatever, even as like the touchdown throw to the running back was wobbly and behind him. I don't know. He doesn't look good. And I don't think that's going to change in a week. But I agree with Mike about Texas's defense. I think they're going to be strong here. So with all the variables, what Mateer's going to play, I think it's going to be a defensive struggle. I think the winner is going to be like 17-13. So I'm going to go with the Texas under 21.5 points because I think if they get a lead and Oklahoma's not moving the ball, they're not going to take too many chances with that offense. Either way, I see this being a rock fight. So give me the Texas team total under 21.5.
Perfect. Love to see it. Yeah, I feel like we all see this as kind of a gross, disgusting game on a few different sides for the outcome of it. But on the other side, we're going to continue to talk about some of these ranked-unranked matchups and just marquee matchups of the day. Best bets, more of them coming. On the other side, this is the Early Edge College Football Pick Show on CBS Sports Network. Welcome back to the Early Edge College Football Pick Show. Mackenzie Brooks here, Tom Casale, Mike McClure, Emory Hunt, bringing you the best bets of Week 7 of college football. Cannot even believe we are more than halfway through. Let's talk about another ranked-on-ranked game here. Number 7, Indiana, headed to number 3, Oregon. Oregon laying 7.5 at home. I will say the lower-ranked teams so far in ranked-on-ranked matchups this year are 12-5. So take that for what you will. Over-under set at 55.5. Another fun note I just realized this morning, you have Dante Moore, who is your Heisman favorite right now, and you have Mendoza, who is your NFL number 1 overall pick favorite right now, depending on where you're shopping around here. So going to be an interesting matchup between these two. Indiana 0-46 all-time against top-ranked teams on the road. You know what? We might just have to ignore that stat here. But, I mean, looking at the quarterback production between these two, Mendoza and Moore, together they have combined for 30 passing touchdowns and 2 interceptions, rocking 73% completion percentage, 75% respectively. These are going to be awesome, awesome quarterback matchups we're going to see. With all of that said, Emory, I start with you because I do see you're on the Indiana side, and I want someone to make a case for this underdog.
Because no one, listen, it's fascinating to watch how many people just consistently doubt Kirk Cignetti. And he'll let you know that so many people are consistently doubting Kirk Cignetti. He told y'all go Google him, right? You go back to IUP. You go back to what he did at James Madison. You look at what he's done so far at Indiana. Indiana, to me, outside of the Ohio State game last year, they tend to show up for these big games. And this is a game where I think they can keep this number close. I love how Mendoza is playing. I love how the defense of Indiana is playing this year. That has been more impressive than anything. So they kind of stayed the course offensively. They always had receivers. They replaced the quarterback, got better in that regard. And defensively, they got significantly better. I think this one will be a lot closer than people think. 7.5 is a little bit too much for me. Give me Indiana plus the points here.
Yeah. See, I hand up one of those Indiana haters from last year. And I stand by that. I think they have 2 surefire baked-in losses on their schedule, and I think they do that annually. I think this is one of them, and I think Penn State's going to be one of them, and I still think it could put them in a good spot for the college football playoff. With that said, I don't want to take Oregon minus the 7.5 full game. I actually rather take the first half minus 5.5 because then I'm not really risking that backdoor cover like I am in the fourth quarter with the 7.5. I just think this Oregon offense and Dante Moore is better than Mendoza. I think Mendoza on the road, you start to see his interception rate double to around 1 again. But if you're racking up 1 a game, that's still 12 on the season is a lot. So I think he might have some trouble here, but I'd rather keep it in the first half with that number of 5.5 instead of the full game 7.5. But I know some of you are still okay with that. Mike, you feel confident in that 7.5.
I do. Look, a little bit of an Indiana doubter here when it comes to playing on the road. We haven't seen them play on the road much against great competition, and when we have, it has not gone well. It obviously was Ohio State and Notre Dame, who ultimately met for the national title. But when I look at this particular line, Kens, I thought this line might have made sense if this game were in Bloomington, Indiana at 11 a.m. local time, which is a 9 a.m. body clock for Oregon. But the fact is, this game is in Oregon. I would make this north of 10. So yes, minus 7.5 on the Oregon side. I would recommend, if you're optimistic on Indiana, just simply play their team total over in this spot. That is basically their path to covering, in my opinion. So give me Oregon here again. I had to triple check the location of the game with this line. Oregon minus 7.5.
For what it's worth, this opening line or look-ahead line was minus 14. So we have basically shaved ourselves a touchdown from where we started here. Both of these teams top 3 in point differential in FBS. We talked about how amazing both of these quarterbacks are in their own respect. Tom, you're thinking that means points on the board?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a fun game, at least for a half. I don't know if Indiana's defense can hold up all game against this Oregon skill position players. They haven't seen anything like this. And the thing about Oregon, just remember, is I think the way to beat them is get to their back end. And Penn State couldn't do it. They brought in all these wide receivers. I don't know where they are. They're still throwing 2-yard passes. I think Mendoza can have some success early in this game. And the other thing to watch is this. Kirk Cignetti is a phenomenal coach. But I thought the 2 games last year against Ohio State and Notre Dame, he played them too conservative early. If you remember early on in the Notre Dame game, he punted from the 40, backed him up. Next play, Jeremiah Love, 98 yards for a touchdown. Thanks for stopping. I think he's going to be more aggressive here in the underdog role. He's still not player for player with Oregon and Ohio State. They're just not. So I think he's got to be aggressive early. I don't think they're going to stop Oregon much at all. So I'll take over 55.5.
I might be making this up in my head, but I feel like this is a rare over almost for Tom Casale over there. And when he is giving out overs, I feel like he really believes in them. So I like that. I think points are definitely going to come in this game. Indiana team total could be a good look. Emory just catching strays out here for his Indiana plus 7.5. But you know what? That's fine. We move on. Let's move on to California. Number 15, Michigan, headed to USC. USC is now favorite. They're minus 2.5 here. It was Michigan originally in that look ahead. Over under set at a high 57.5. This is an interesting game to me. I'm going to start this off here. I think Michigan should still be favored. The fact that I can get plus money for them to win this game outright, I feel pretty good about that. I think they're still getting dinged from this Oklahoma defense that they didn't perform their best at with their first road start of their true freshman quarterback. Sue me to believe this Michigan offense has gotten better since then. This is also a USC defense who allowed basically 500 yards to Illinois, who got killed by Indiana. So this whole full circle situation to me is making me think this USC defense just really isn't that good. So I'm going to take Michigan here. This is really just a play on the line movement, and I think we fade the public here. Emory, I want to see what side you're on.
I'm on the Michigan side. I can't trust USC defensively at all, and I can't trust their offense against a very good defense. There were once upon a time where USC defensively was always top 3 in the country, if not number 1. We have seen that go by the wayside. Anytime we've seen Lincoln Riley go somewhere, the defense has always tended to struggle because it's all about the offense. And I think that approach in this ball game against Michigan, that would just love to get up there and just run the ball, play great defense, and salt this game away, which I think will happen. That's why I trust the Wolverines in this spot, regardless of them starting a freshman quarterback.
Yeah, and for those who don't remember, last year, Michigan won this game 27-24. That's an over-under of 51. It was a game-winning touchdown with 37 seconds left, which is interesting here. This over-under now set at 57.5. Tom, a second over on the day from you.
Yeah, listen, I think we all see this game kind of similar, and I gave out the over on the show, but I'm actually starting to look more at the Michigan team total over too. If you look at what they're doing with Bryce Underwood, I took his over passing yards last week because at home he's throwing more, and on the road they're having him run a little bit more to try to protect him, in those tough environments. I do think they're going to open it up a little bit more here against USC. And Mackenzie, you mentioned the USC defense against Illinois. How about 176 rushing yards for the Illini? What do you think Michigan's going to do to them? And there's also some injury concerns here with USC coming into the game. We don't really know yet if some of these guys are going to play. But I agree with what you said. I make this game at least pick them. And I think Michigan should be maybe a slight favorite. So I do like the over, and I am starting to lean more towards the Michigan team total over.
Yeah, I love to isolate the team totals here. I know we don't have many good things to say about USC, so I'm just going to keep laying it on here. USC doesn't have a win versus a ranked team as favorites in their last 5. They have literally lost every game. They have been a favorite versus another ranked team in those last 5. Michigan also 9-3 against the spread in road conference games in their last 12 here. Mike, bring us home. Are we go blue?
Yeah, it's got to be Michigan here for me, Ken. You look at the way that they will maybe want to play, and in these spots they have kind of protected Underwood a little bit, and that's because they can, right? I think they'll let him throw it around a little bit, but if it's not going well, they're still going to be in this game because they can line up, eat clock, and run the football against USC. They're going to be able to possess the football and keep this a one-score game at worst. And that's the scenario where Underwood's not having a lot of success throwing the football down the field. I think he's going to have a little success here, though. So I like Michigan. We do a little segment at the end of the show with underdogs. I almost created my own underdog line, taking Michigan minus 7.5 in this game. I didn't, so I'm not going to give away my underdog yet, but I think the scenario here for a Michigan 7 to 10 point win is definitely on the table.
Yeah, and not to mention, like, the playoff implications here are pretty big. USC basically out of this race here. I'd call that, at-large bid race between Michigan, Penn State, Indiana. But winning this game versus USC would definitely be huge for Michigan and their insurance to get into that college football playoff. So maybe it is this Michigan team total. Even if they are up by a ton, they're still going to be putting up those style points here. For what it's worth, USC 4-1 to the over this season, helping out Tom, and Michigan 3-2 to the over as well. All right, we've talked the marquee matchups. There are a ton this week. We just can't get to all of them. But what we want to do next is get to our best bets. The best of the weekend, the best on the slate, what the guys feel most confident about, coming up on the other side. Welcome back to the College Football Pick Show on the Early Edge on CBS Sports Network. We have gone through a lot of these marquee matchups, ranked on ranked guys, but let's get to some of our best bets overall. And before we do that, let's take a quick look at what we did last week. And I will say it was a positive week from the boys here. 4-2 overall. Mike goes 2-0, moves to 500 on the season. We are nothing if not consistent. Emory Hunt 1-1, 6-6 overall in the season as well. Tom Lane 500 last week as well, 4-8 overall. But we keep moving forward. And it's interesting because usually in this segment, I'm like, you know what, let's get weird. We're probably going to pick some weird games, some non-marquee matchup type of games, talking some like South Alabama and UTEP and all of these things. Things are looking very marquee here right now. Emory, you got 2 big plays for us. Let's start with the Georgia Bulldogs on the road, getting it done at Auburn.
I just can't trust Auburn offense against Georgia's defense. That's the matchup that I like in this ball game, and I like the number. So I will lay the 3.5 with Georgia. I just trust that, I was about to call him Stetson Bennett, but when you look at, Gunnar Stockton, he plays a lot like Stetson Bennett in terms of how he's just a gamer. And when you have that ability, the underrated dual threat nature of his game, the consistency in which they're starting to play offense and how they can run the football, I like how they found those backs that Georgia tends to have. But defensively versus this offense is the matchup they win, thus covering this 3.5 point spread.
Yeah, and also something about having Gunnar Stockton already going on the road against Tennessee. Obviously, that one was a little bit out of their control, but to get that done on the road, I like him a lot better in a night environment in Auburn here. Let's stick with that SEC theme here. I think 8.5 is a really big number. I agree with you here. South Carolina hosting LSU.
They should have won this game last year. Remember that phantom block in the back on the pick 6 that Nussmeier threw. in that ball game turned the tide of this game, and their defense is still very good right now. Nussmeier can't throw a ball past 10 yards. It's an adventure when he does. We don't know if he's hurt or if he's not. And so when you have that going on, combined with the South Carolina team that plays great defense, that can get pressure on the quarterback, that can turn the ball over, offensively they can do enough to where they can have some success. You know, Sellers is good for one scramble play where he breaks contain and gets out of dodge. They'll find enough offense to beat LSU. The under is probably a good play here as well, but I like South Carolina plus 8.5.
Do you think there is a glimmer of hope that they can win this game outright?
Yes, absolutely, because LSU's offense is not what we thought it was going to be, and therein lies where South Carolina has a chance to take advantage.
Fair enough. That could be good. Could be chaos. This is the year of chaos. Let's move on here, and we're staying with the SEC and some big fun games here. Mike, we already talked about this game with Alabama and Missouri, but just hammer home why you like Alabama here.
Yeah, it's just the overreaction to me, Ken's. You look at where the game was a week ago, not that much has changed in my opinion. The only thing that's changed for me is we watched Alabama go win 2 games that were maybe in doubt for them, right? They just beat Georgia and then they beat Vandy. And what they've struggled with under Kalen DeBoer, some could say it's, unranked teams and road games. They've really struggled with mobile quarterbacks, and what they were able to do against Diego Pavia was very impressive to me in that game. So I think they're going to have that success again here. But to me, it's really just the confidence and the belief, right? I think the entire team as a whole is still bought into Kalen DeBoer. Had he lost one of those 2 games, it was maybe going to be ugly again, right? But they've rebounded nicely. There's a lot of belief in that locker room right now, and I think that travels in this particular spot. And Missouri, prove it to me here, because they haven't played anyone yet so far this season. Alabama's been tested against very good competition multiple times. I will take Bama here. I thought the line, again, should be closer to 6.
Fair enough. This Bama team, again, 4-0 against the spread and straight up since that FSU loss. Mike McClure paying to find out. And same with Texas here. Another marquee matchup here. He's still getting a decent price on the Texas money line.
Yeah, for me, it's more about Texas defensively than offensively. You've got questions on the Oklahoma side, whether Mateer is going to play or not. Do I think it's wise for him to play? I mean, they've got to win games. They've got a brutal schedule. It's a tough situation to step into. Extremely hot in Dallas. It's 90 degrees at kickoff for this game. I think that the defense is going to win out here, though, really on both sides. So you're talking about a competitive one-score game. I still have some belief in Arch Manning personally in this spot. So Texas, this is the true must-win game on their schedule, and you're talking about a line that was basically 11 in this game with question marks whether or not the Heisman caliber quarterback and John Mateer is even going to play on the other side. That's too much of an overreaction here. Give me Texas on the money line.
Real quick, Mike, I know you spend a lot of time traveling to some fun college games. Have you ever been to the Red River rivalry?
I have not, and I am currently, Ken, sitting about 20 miles away. I am trying my best to see if my schedule can allow for it on Saturday here.
Wow, that sounds really fun. Except the weather, honestly, I feel like you're convincing yourself out of it. You're like, know what, forget it. It's going to be too hot anyway. That would be really cool, though. Tom, you did it for us. You got us to G5. You got us to some weirder games here. Talk to me about Boise State here versus New Mexico.
Yeah, I think this is a good spot for Boise State. New Mexico's playing, I think, a little bit over their heads. They have a great coach in Jason Eck, and I think this program is in great hands long term. But this is their second straight road game now, and they're going to by far the toughest place to play in the Mountain West Conference. Boise coming off the loss to Notre Dame, slight concern there, but I trust Spencer Danielson and his staff to get the team ready for conference play. You look at their 2 home games; they've outscored opponents 98-28. In the first half, it's 54-14. I think Boise State gets out fast at home and covers the 8.5.
Yeah, and I always have to think about Boise State still fighting-ish for a playoff spot for that group of 5 spot here. One more pick from you, Tom. We're talking Oregon State this time.
Yeah, I got to be honest. The best bets on this show are causing me all kinds of anxiety on Saturdays. I'm 8-12 this college football season. 18-12. I've given out 8 of the 12 losers on this show. I can't pick the right game, so I said, Tom, what can you do to rectify this? Let's go to winless Oregon State, 0-6 at home against Wake Forest. That ought to do it. I just like this spot for the Beavers. Wake Forest is coming off 2 emotional games, ACC games, and the furthest they've traveled is Blacksburg, Virginia. This is a young team. They got to go through 3 time zones. Oregon State has struggled, but you look at their last 2 home games. They should have beat Houston, lost in overtime. They outplayed Fresno State, but their starting long snapper got hurt the week before, and they literally couldn't get a long snap off. As a father of a long snapper, I was horrified watching that game. They fixed that problem. I think at home getting a field goal, I'm going to sell high on Wake Forest and pray.
Wow. Winless Oregon State, someone's got to do it, Tom. Maybe this is the answer to the prayers here. And for what it's worth, you can get all the guys' picks over at SportsLine as well. With a lot of Tom's winners, let's take a quick look back at the recap for best bets of Week 7. Mike McClure on Alabama -3. Texas moneyline versus Oklahoma. Emory Hunt staying in the SEC. Georgia -3.5 versus Auburn. And South Carolina plus the 8.5 versus LSU. Tom is bringing us to Boise State first half -8.5 versus New Mexico. And Oregon State making some noise plus the 3 versus Wake Forest. All right, we got one more thing to check off the list here. We have some underdog bets of the week to hit, and we have some interesting ones here. Make no mistake, we will see you on the other side. Welcome back to the Early Edge College Football Pick Show. We got one more thing to get through here. We're talking underdog best bets of the week. Rules here: money line must be plus 150 or longer. I hit on Western Kentucky money line last week. I'm pretty sure I gave that out on the show, and if I didn't, you can make fun of me in the comments. Okay, let's start with a banger. Mike McClure, you're just gonna do the thing. You're gonna take UCLA in this game versus Michigan State.
Yeah, it's clearly the overreaction. UCLA, can't win 2 games in a row. No way. Penn State, just generational collapse potentially in that game. But look, UCLA, it's been an awful season for them, right? They've got a quarterback who I still think is a good quarterback in Nico. But I saw signs against Northwestern. They played on the road at Northwestern, 6.5-point underdog, lost that game on the field 17-14, but covered the spread. I think that they can be right there. This is a spread that when we had look-ahead lines way before that was down to 3.5. We're talking about 8.5 is the spread right now. I think this game should be a pick'em, truly. When I look at Michigan State, they surrendered 38 points to Nebraska, 45 to USC, 24 to Youngstown State, 40 to Boston College. I think UCLA might just win 2 games in a row here.
I respect the shot at this, Mike. I really do. I hope we see this as a winner coming through. Emory, let's go to you here. We're going Big 12. I was actually shocked by this number. Arizona State, 5.5-point dogs for Utah.
Which is crazy because Sam Levitt is playing outstanding right now. This was my preseason Big 12 championship pick before Texas Tech bought me some land out there in Texas. So I've been pumping those guys up ever since. All season long they've been putting together some great footage out there. But Arizona State, better quarterback, better offensive weapons. I like them straight up outright against Utah. Give me the Sun Devils.
Love it. Love the Sun Devils here. Tom, round us out with the only way we know how, the Mountain West.
Yeah, I'm going to take a shot with Air Force and future Heisman Trophy winning quarterback Liam Zarka. My guy's been even better than I thought there. Now, their defense is atrocious. They can't stop anyone. So I think this is going to be a back-and-forth game the whole way. I think it'll be close in the fourth quarter. If Air Force's defense can make a stop, they might have a chance to steal it. I'll take the Falcons at plus 185.
Love it. Love to see it. And if I were to give one out for what it's worth, I'd go Missouri money line. Doesn't exactly meet the requirements. But I will say over there, Mike shaking his head, give me the alt. We can go -3.5 plus 176. At that point, you might as well go for the damn touchdown if you want to do that. Or parlay that and Michigan money line, and that'll get you to where you need to be. So that's what I'm going with here. Give me both of these dogs in the marquee matchups. Gentlemen, it has been a pleasure as always. I think we're going to see some of these go through the hoop, certainly. Shout out to UCLA plus 255 moneyline from Mike McClure. We'll be rooting that on. And if you want more from myself, Tom, Mike, Emory, you can find us on the Early Edge SportsLine YouTube show and podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, all of the things. Scan that QR code now to get our best bets headed in to the weekend. This is the Early Edge College Football Picks show presented by none other than BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Have a great Wednesday.